Like many people during this pandemic, I've been spending a lot of time catching up on my favorite television shows. I spent most of last Sunday catching up on the television series The Crown on Netflix. It's the ongoing drama of the British royal family. And while the show does take a few liberties with the actual plot of the story of the royal family, it's also true that you could not find better material for a soap opera story than the British royal family. Think about it for just a moment. King Edward VIII and Wallis Simpson, Princess Margaret and Tony Armstrong-Jones, Princess Anne and Mark, Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson, Charles and Camilla and Diana, and then back to Camilla. Those are only the dysfunctional marriages, not even the dysfunctional relationships that they have with each other. And if you've been watching this season of The Crown, you know that it climaxes with an event that even I'm old enough to remember, and that is the dysfunctional relationship of Princess Di with the rest of the royal family. Which leaves us all wondering, why is there so much drama in the British royal family? Why are their relationships with one another so incredibly and intimately complex? Well, looking on the outside in, for starters, I would like to suggest that it's because for most royal family members there exists this tension, and that tension is the tension between their doing their duty and their feelings getting in the way. And if the show is to be believed as far as what we've seen so far throughout the seasons, this is a tension that the British royal family and the monarchy is particularly ill-equipped to deal with. For Prince Charles, the idea of finding a spouse that is of the right breeding and the right temperament, that's his duty. He needs to marry Diana. She's the right woman for that position. But lo and behold, what do his feelings tell him? His feelings tell him to go be with Camilla. That's what his feelings tell him, and at least in the movie version, we're told that is why the marriage between Princess Di and Charles ultimately does not work out. And yet, if you look at the British monarchy just a little bit deeper, you'll see that this is not only a matter of feelings coming into conflict with duty, but that there's a deeper rot that is setting in and has been setting in the British monarchy for some time. And that is that time and time again we see members of the British royal family who feel that because of their power and their duty, that they do not have a responsibility to live a moral life. Queen Elizabeth in this season grapples with what it means to put her duty to the crown above the duty to her family. In fact, I would say no duty to her family, only a duty to the crown. There's even a great line in this year's series, which has to have been written over the past several months, where she looks at her son, Prince Andrew, and says, oh gosh, if Andrew doesn't change, who knows what he's going to be capable of doing? Well, the Torah, for one, is perfectly clear about parents' moral and duty responsibilities to their children, being the most important responsibility that we have in our entire lives. The Talmud tells us it's not about your trade, it's about teaching your child to be responsible and to have their own trade. You have to teach your child Torah, values, how to swim. Swimming, of course, not only literally, but a metaphor for how to survive in the great pool of life. That didn't work with Prince Andrew, because the Queen replaced her duty to her family with her responsibility and duty to her country. And if that's too complicated, or you're not buying it, let's just get on a more basic level like this. Just because you are the Prince of Wales does not mean you go get to carry out an extramarital affair with a married woman. Lo tinaf. There it is in the Torah. And yet if you know anything about British royal marriages and affairs, you know that this is a tradition going back several generations. More than once, Camilla makes note of the fact that her great-great-grandmother was the mistress of Charles's great-great-grandfather. Who cares if he's a moral human being or not? The people in the crown say. Well, last I checked, I say that is part of his moral responsibility and his duty of being a leader. As Jews, we have always espoused the belief that morality is a critical part of doing our duty to the world and our duty to one another. And when we see morality being ignored, we have a responsibility to speak out and to fight against it. No figure exemplifies that dedication to morality and to duty than Rivka Imenu, than Rebecca, our matriarch, in this week's parashah. Given, as I mentioned earlier today, what you see that Rebecca does to her son Esau, you would have expected the rabbis to condemn her. She tricks her oldest son out of his birthright. She deceives her blind husband. That's not a great thing for a mother to do to a child. Only our Rabbi Chazal, our sages of blessed memory, teach us that her actions were justified. Why? Because she saw morality being supplanted in favor of duty. Esav, according to Chazal, our sages of blessed memory, was a dutiful son. He honored his father, kibud av va'em. But the Talmud of Bava Batra 16a teaches us that on the very day when he was going to hunt venison for his father, that Esav engaged in 5 very serious averot, 5 very serious sins. Rabbi Yochanan taught that wicked Esau dishonored a betrothed maiden, he committed murder, he denied God, he denied resurrection of the dead, and he spurned his birthright. That's a pretty busy day, even for Prince Charles. Wow. This is why our rabbis do not condemn Rebecca. They praise her for saving the moral life of Judaism and instructing it to Yaakov. My mother used to joke when she was alive, and this was years ago already, that Queen Elizabeth was going to live forever because she was holding out as long as she possibly could so that Charles would not become the King of England. Now I want to shift gears for a moment, because before we are so quick to judge the British royalty and the monarchy, I want to talk about all of us and how we as a society are right now struggling about this tension and this responsibility between doing morality and doing our duty. This coming week is Thanksgiving, and I have been disappointed by countless social media posts, countless people who have told me something to the effect of this: just go and celebrate Thanksgiving with your family. Who cares about the numbers? You may die soon anyway, and you only get to live once. Friends, I understand the COVID fatigue. I have it too. But I want to make it quite clear that encouraging large gatherings this year is not doing your duty to your family. It's doing your duty while acting immorally. Yes, on any other year, I would admit we have a duty to our family on Thanksgiving. But when you have multiple generations of people in a house with an asymptomatic virus that is affecting different people differently, as Americans, our duty is abundantly clear this year. It's to be moral and to save lives. We're not going to bend the curve. It's too late. But until there is a widely available vaccine, we must make sure that as few people die as possible. And that means that unless you are in an already existing pod, if you are getting tested, unless you're getting tested and isolating, It means not spending Thanksgiving with your family like you might ordinarily do. This is our moral duty, no matter what our feelings tell us, not to go and be with our family. Don't forget, you may live once, but you only die once, too. At Eitz Chaim, many of you may have seen the email, we have made the powerful, painful decision to make our services all virtual for the next month. And we have done so in spite of what our feelings tell us about how important in-person community is, how it's the hallmark of what we do. Like so many of you, I miss the bagels, I miss the kiddush, I miss the schmoozing with the people we care about. But we are making this choice because we must do our duty. We must act morally to keep this community safe. Never forget the words of the rabbis in the Talmud, Pikuach nefesh doche et ha-Shabbat. Saving a life takes precedence even over the observance of Shabbat. As Jews, our tradition teaches us, we bow to no earthly king or queen. We only bow to the one true crown that is in heaven. Watching The Crown this season, we are reminded that those kings and queens are fallible human beings. They mix up duty with morality all the time. But for the God of our ancestors, who in Kabbalah is called Keter, the God who is called the crown in heaven, there may be no duty without morality. That is our part of the deal. That is our covenant with God on earth. Which is why I want to ask you this Shabbat to please stay safe this Thanksgiving. Do your duty to our God and to your country. Stay safe and healthy over the next month. Amen.